1340 96.5 KVGC. On the phone with me, Douglas Viviani of Everything Old is New Again. Tonight, he and David Cohen take a look at, pop culture, where it came from, why it's still popular, making radio fun again. And, over the last couple of weeks, you guys have kind of been looking back at the show, and I really enjoyed that. Was it enjoyable for you to kind of look back and say, here's where we started, and now here's where we are. Look how far we've come, or look how we've improved?
It does. I would say the short answer is yes. It's fun to take a look back. We do every year. We do a look back, but that's mostly just of the shows in general. This was looking back at the entire project itself. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? What's happening with it? And yeah, it's a lot of work, and it's a labor of love. But to actually see, see results, that's really the thing that, I don't know, finally gets to you when you look back and you see where you've come. And the first show you listen to, I'm sure you listen to, if you even have a tape of it, the first show you ever did, and you cringe at the things you did, and said.
Sure.
And we, I did that a little bit, looking at our first show and what we did. And I had a script that I was going to read, and and to get the ball rolling, and I was reading it, or you could tell I was reading it. It was like a high school kid, and like I would say the first 5 takes, I kept on saying, no, don't read it, just get to it, just see what. Finally, I threw the script out and went for it, and became so much better. And then from there, you grow, you become a little more comfortable and a little more of an idea of what you're doing and where you're going.
Sure.
Yeah, it was great.
Douglas, whose idea actually was it? Was it yours? Was it David's? Were you actually both sitting around a bar talking about your favorite Disney princess? How did it really come about?
It came about from my own, longing to do what I really wanted to do in life, which is be on the radio. And then I said, well, you have to have some kind of a hook, some kind of a show. And I always had, Trivial Pursuit in the back of my mind, and the idea that I'm always aware of what's going on in entertainment for whatever reason, and I'm privileged to have, the memory to remember all these things. But it was like, to me, all this entertainment information was just useless information to me. Like, what are we going to do with this? So let me just focus on that, because that's what I like, movies and TV and sports and whatever. So I just came up with the idea of doing, a show, and I don't know where the name came from. It was sort of inspired just to come up with the name, which was a common phrase, but no one really has done that before. And I approached David. He was the first thought right away, because of the chemistry and so forth, and we had the same kind of bend on things. And the one thing that was interesting was how are we going to present this? How are we going to do it? How do you format it? The clips came to mind right away. So all this was really the brainchild of myself, and I just had made the right phone call to David to bring it along, because honestly, if I was just doing this by myself, it would just be rambling, and it would be not a third or not even the show wouldn't be a third of what it is now. It's being able to hit ideas off of somebody that can riff and go with it and create characters and things like that. It really is a lot of fun, and that's why I think it works for us. And
if I were to ask that same question of David, he would say, well, I had this idea, and the first person I thought of to call would be Douglas. So, hey.
No, he's a pretty honest guy, believe it or not.
Douglas, I know you want to talk about baseball. It's still too early in the season to talk about baseball, but what I would like to do, I went on the Giants website on Thursday. Thursday was opening day, which I think, isn't it the earliest opening day in the history?
The thing that annoys me is they're earlier with the opening day, and that's kind of okay with me if the goal is to shorten the season and bring us back to October for the World Series, which it used to be October 3rd, but it's not what's happening. We're still in the World Series now in sort of end of October, beginning November, so I don't know what their goal was here.
Well, I know why.
I think the players more time off.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly, yeah.
And no double headers. So there's so many things. We did a show on the panacea of what we think the panacea of baseball is and would be to help it along a little bit. And this wasn't it.
No.
I remember opening day. Let's see, beginning of April, maybe 10 years ago, Yankee Stadium, and it was snowing, and there was a Santa Claus in the audience and the crowd, and I remember that distinctly, and it's still the same, at least for us here. It's probably the weather's not the greatest for baseball where you are either, right? But it's probably a little better. We're in the 30s and 40s, and they're playing baseball.
Well, it's 46 here. I don't know what it was in San Francisco on Thursday. Did they play in San? I can't remember if they played in San Francisco or if they played in.
Well, if not, they played in
Diego.
Oakland. Let's put it that way.
No, no.
Don't forget there is another team, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But, no,
but yeah, I mean, you're playing in these temperatures that are down, and I don't know. It's got to be tough for the players and all this. And I guess they want now. It's like every Monday there's no baseball. Is that what's happening?
I just can't. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Does it?
And they're signing contracts for hundreds of millions of dollars. It just doesn't jive to me.
No, you're right. It's just the whole. Again, I'm just going to say, I'd be interested to see what this whole game looks like when Leo is our age. I started to say this, what I did earlier today, not today, but on Thursday rather, is I looked at the Giants page, okay? And I said, okay, Giants page, here are the players. I wanted to take a snapshot of that page and say, how many people will be here at the end of the season, but how many people will be here over the next 5 years?
Right.
Who will be leaving? Whose names should I memorize? You know, whose position should I memorize that they play because they'll always be there? It's just a revolving door now to me in sports, isn't it? Do you see?
Yeah, and that's a problem. And I think what what it's devolved down to is that these teams are now picking basically one, maybe two players that's going to be the face of their team, and they're renegotiating and extending these contracts for big numbers. And these people are going to be these players are going to be the face of the franchise, which is fine because people need that. But in baseball, you need more. I think we're attuned to it because we remember our teams growing up and thereafter till all this happened, because we remember a lot of the same players all the time. Now, of course, we don't want the same player ever, and never change a team. But to change, like you say, out of 25 players on the field, by the end of the year, you may have 10, if not more, gone. And the end of next year, and you may have another turnover of another 5 or 6. And your core doesn't stay the same many times, and therefore you can't relate to the team anymore because you think of team by team, and you cannot even think of 2 or 3 players on each team in the league. There's no identification,
Exactly.
I don't want to root for a uniform. I want to root for, let's say, Derek Jeter. That's me. But I want to know more than Derek Jeter on the team. Give me 5 or 6 players, or 10 players, and beyond that, though, the main thing that made baseball cool for me was growing up. Another team is coming in, and I know 5 or 6 players right off the bat on that team that's coming in. So I know the enemy, if you will, and they have a face, and you're sort of an identity, and it's like you could just have some fun with it, knowing who's on what team. So I think they're trying to get to that with these contracts, but it's only going to be 1 or 2 players that stick around for 5 or 6 years. That's it.
Have I ever told you the story of Bill Peterson, the financial planner that I rent space to next to us?
No.
Here? Okay. Growing up as a boy, Bill was a bat boy for the Giants.
Wow.
And early in life worked in the Giants organization and then realized he was going to have to be there a long time before he made it anywhere. So he just, got into other things. But he was he started out as the visitors bat boy.
Right.
And every team, I didn't realize this until he was telling me, every team travels with, 2 or 3 different size uniforms, and you provide them with the bat boy. And the visitors bat boy also is the one that rubs down the baseballs for the umpires.
Okay.
And so you've got to get there like an hour and a half ahead of time. And you should talk to, I should set you guys up to talk to, maybe you would even do a show with him and his exploits. And he said, some of the baseball players, the visiting guys, they were just great. And some were just asses. But,
I mean, definitely do, especially if you name names.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he'll tell you names. He talks about who was a great guy, who wasn't a great guy, who was, who helped him with his homework. Juan Marichal would help him with his homework,
wow.
Except, Juan was from the Dominican Republic and didn't speak English that well, but he would help him with his math. And just different people. Willie Mays, the early days of Bobby Bonds, Barry's dad, and so forth. But anyway,
wow.
Long story short, baseball is here. I'm going to put it away for a couple of weeks, and then I'll bring it out, and I'll get ready to listen every afternoon except Mondays, while I'm sitting by my pool. So
right. Well,
let's see.
We'll do the same, but we've got a couple of baseball-related guests coming up, which I think is pretty cool. Now, I don't know if you remember the Mets in '69, but they're celebrating their championship from '69, and we're going to have Ron Swoboda and Art Shamsky on.
Wow.
And so Ron Swoboda made that catch, and even if you don't know them, they have some great books about baseball and behind the scenes and the players, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see.
Was that?
And then we've got Ron Darling coming on board.
Was that 50 years ago?
Yeah, that was 50. Imagine that.
50 years ago. I can remember exactly where I was. My teacher brought the TV into the classroom because we couldn't believe, that the Mets were in the World Series. And
wow, we did the same thing. But now think about that. I don't know if that happens anymore. You're rooting on and taking a look at two East Coast teams in California for the World Series in the 60s. That's how big it was.
And I can remember, pulling for the Mets. We were pulling for the Mets.
So you think you recognize those names then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's good to hear because you want to sort of appeal to everybody, and that's what we're going to do.
But we have to stop our conversation today and move to one thing. JD and I both want to have a little talk with you, and maybe you can have a talk with the executive producer. They're starting to lose us on Oak Island, and we're only watching. We're only continuing to watch because you said.
But haven't you seen? They found some more metal. They found some coins, and I think this next episode this week is supposed to be a big reveal.
Okay, because JD and I think they're just garbage pits. No, honest, they're just digging into garbage pits, and the island has just had sinkholes all these years, and people have just dumped stuff in these sinkholes. But we're gonna.
What about all that wood? All about all that area where they've dug? What would you say? They closed off all the water from it. They found all this basically a handmade kind of.
What do they call it? They call it a slip. Yeah, a slip thing where they could have hauled heavy things up on shore.
The ship and all of that. And then they are starting to find some metal. They're starting to find some coin, and it's dating back to the Knights Templar.
Do you know more than you're telling us? Do you know more than you're telling us?
I do.
Okay. Hey, what's up with this?
But I will say this: it's not like anything. It's not groundbreaking.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's okay, but it's not like, wow, they just solved the mystery. You're not going to get that.
What's up with this week's show?
This week, we're going to take a look at, speaking of like the history of things and looking back at what's going on, we spoke about this in the past. The Academy Awards came and went. I don't think anyone even remembers the show from a month ago, the 91st Academy Awards. I don't think anyone watched really all that much. And I'm just curious what happened when when I was growing up, the Academy Awards was Bob Hope, and thereafter was Johnny Carson and even Letterman, and it was an event. Certainly, we didn't have E-entertainment, and we didn't have celebrities on Twitter and everything else, so they were a lot less accessible. So the Oscars, I think, at the time were much more of a special event to see stars mingling together that you never saw mingle before. But it's got to be more to it. Is it the hosts? Is it the fact that we're tired of celebrities? What's it all about? What's happened to the Oscars? What can we do to make it better? And, of course, we'll have our own little twist on it, the Everything Old is New Again way.
That's tonight at 6 o'clock. Tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, Douglas Viviani and David Cohen. Everything Old is New Again. All right, we're going to hold you to it. They better find something good, not just an old piece of pottery or a chicken bone or something down there on Oak
No, that
Island.
they've just found.